if you can be on a stage at that same event, at the event where your ideal clients are in the audience, and now you're the expert, you have got such an advantage over everyone else that's just trying to form a relationship with people walking by their booths. So there's so many different strategies, but just thinking about how powerful it would be if you could get in front of those ideal clients and add a valuable content to them, and then even get them on your email list as part of that presentation, and then you can obviously stick around, and you're going to have way more people interested now, way more people that want to talk to you or want to explore something than you would have had just being present at an event, just being another vendor, just being another exhibitor, etc. So thinking about speaking as a strategy is something I do think a lot of business owners ignore, and health coaches. There's a lot of opportunities for you.
Welcome to another episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar Cumberbatch of OmarCumberbatch.com. So excited to share today's guest with you. His name is Blair Nichols, and he's talking about something that we really, really need to take a look at as health coaches, because, again, I've probably spoke about it many times on the podcast before, but public speaking is an amazing way to get clients. So he's going to dive into that and talk about his agency and all the good stuff in the industry, and a couple of things that I had no idea was going on as well. So it's really enlightening to hear about this specific topic and all the new and good stuff that's going on with that. So I hope that you enjoy him. I thought he was awesome. So let's jump into the show. But first, please, as always, leave a rating and review so I can continuously get awesome guests like Blair on the show and provide all the interesting topics that are relevant to health coaches and how to get their businesses going. All right, let's jump into it. Hey, Blair, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I love this topic. It's one of those avenues that I think a lot of people really are beginning to see, at least in the health coaching space, how powerful public speaking is. So I just want to dive into a little bit about how you got into this field, what exactly you do, and then we'll get into a couple of questions that right after that.
Yeah, sure. So I coach and manage speakers, a lot of people who are either doing paid and or strategic speaking as part of their business or as a primary part of their business. And, I just started off in speakers bureaus, was my first job out of college. I was headed for a job in New York in publishing, and the job that I found myself with was an assistant to the director of the HarborCon Speakers Bureau. So an industry that I didn't really know existed, kind of sprang to life. And, the rest is the journey that I've been on since 2007.
Oh, wow. So you've been in the game for a long time. So is it still true that, public speaking is the most feared thing next to death? Is that still carry? And how did that even make you even more empowered to dive into this and really succeed
Oh,
in it?
yeah. Well, I mean, I do hear that. I don't know if there's any new data out there on that or not. I would say I was hoping that maybe because of COVID, a lot of people got more comfortable, like having to speak on camera, having to be on camera just to be in a Zoom meeting.
Hmm.
So it might feel a little bit more empowering or emboldening to do more speaking in that sense, and then transition that to in person. But I do think it's still a pretty common fear, and there's a lot of seasoned speakers that have stage fright and get the jitters as well. So I think it's just a pretty natural thing for most people.
So why do you think public speaking is such a successful business strategy? And how can it open up for health coaches who are just starting out?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you've got such limited time and resources. If you're a solopreneur, as you're getting your own practice started, whatever that looks like, and you have to decide what to do with that. Like, I'm just an advocate for getting out there and finding opportunities to speak in front of your ideal audience. And rather than putting that into, Facebook ads or other digital strategies like that, that's just going to churn through so much money. And a lot of you might be thinking about going to conferences or events and being a sponsor, maybe having a booth and all of this, but imagine how many people you're going to meet just walking by the booth or shaking hands. You're not going to get that many, connections. You're not going to be able to do that many deals or, really attract that many customers just with that strategy alone. But if you can be on a stage at that same event, at the event where your ideal clients are in the audience, and now you're the expert, you have got such an advantage over everyone else that's just trying to form a relationship with people walking by their booths. So there's so many different strategies, but just thinking about how powerful it would be if you could get in front of those ideal clients and add a valuable content to them, and then even get them on your email list as part of that presentation, and then you can obviously stick around, and you're going to have way more people interested now, way more people that want to talk to you or want to explore something than you would have had just being present at an event, just being another vendor, just being another, exhibitor, etc. So thinking about speaking as a strategy is something I do think a lot of business owners ignore, and health coaches. There's a lot of opportunities for you. Just something that my colleague used to say is, if you're a yoga instructor, don't go to the yoga conference, go to the stressed out people's conference. So,
Mm.
depending on what your work looks like and what your ideal client looks like, don't just go to other health related conferences. Don't just go to other, where there's everyone there is going to be kind of the same mindset or of the same, you know, kind of on board. Like, think about where you can go and stand out, where you can go and maybe that is going to set you apart from the other content that they're receiving, and the opportunities that to work with you beyond that don't get kind of flooded out by everyone else kind of sharing a similar message.
I actually love that a lot. I never thought about it that way. That's an excellent point. Because like mentioned off air, every time I've had a public speaking event, I always get a client. It never ever fails. I have my idea of why that's the case, but I want to see if we were on the same page with that. So why do you think just being in front of an audience has that much more of an effect on getting actual clients? What is there an idea behind
Yeah.
that?
Well, I mean, I think people say people need to know, like, and trust you. And I think that really accelerates when you're up there, you're able to tell a story and create an emotional connection and actually earn people's trust. And like they like you because they've learned a little bit about you, maybe made them laugh. And so how you structure your talk is a big part of how to do this successfully, not
Hmm.
just getting up there and pitching something, or not just getting up there and jumping right into a complicated or technical, conversation, but opening with a story, being vulnerable, being authentic, getting them to kind of, follow you, and then they learn from you. They're more open to that, and that's at the end of that part, maybe three-quarters of the way through, you offer that free resource or the whatever that you want to give them. Throw that QR code up on the screen, give them time to get it downloaded, and then bring them back and close with a story. So then that's what they remember. Bring it back to the story from the beginning, tie it up in a nice little bow, and that's just how the human mind works. If they feel complete, then and then you're going to be remembered, and then you're already have earned their trust probably. So them getting to discover to jump in working with you isn't that surprising, because it's a lot different than seeing an ad, scheduling a call, checking referrals. Like, that's what a lot of the sales process usually looks like. And what does that all mean? It's like, know, like, and trust. Do they like you for themselves? Did they find out about you, and then now can they trust you by looking at references or something else? But if they believe and see what you have to say on stage, and you're also talking about the work that you do, then you're just, again, it's such a massive advantage.
Hmm. No, I definitely think that's a part of it, and probably a bigger part than I was actually thinking about. And because I was trying to figure out, okay, why is it so successful on my end? And I always came up with the idea that whoever you're speaking in front of, the event itself asked you to participate in it. So people, I guess, automatically assume that you're an expert because,
Yeah.
yeah, you wouldn't be invited, you wouldn't be on stage, you wouldn't be in front of these people unless you had something backing you up in that expert realm. So I think that was one of the advantages as well, too.
Yeah, and it works both ways. It's you are kind of conferring some credibility on the event organizers and the hosts as well. Like you're a third party validator. Like sometimes coming
Mhm.
into a corporate event, you're there to really help reinforce and carry their message or the theme or the whatever. And so I think it should always be a win-win. You should always be there whether you're getting paid or not because it's going to help, get more leads, get more business, like do something to advance what your mission is.
No, definitely. So, do you actually have to be very good at public speaking to succeed? And I know that's a loaded question, but the reason I bring it up is because you do see a lot of different styles. And I think a lot of people kind of think that, maybe the more animated individuals like, say a Tony Robbins or see even a Les Brown are those kind of, that's the ideal piece. And then you also see people like Eckhart Tolle who looks like he's about to go to sleep, right? So, like, talk about the spectrum and talk about maybe why we don't need to be the public speaker in our mind to actually succeed in public speaking.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I think Tony Robbins is always everyone's archetype of the speaker. And I talk about that a lot in that I had seen this shift from it being all about energy and like bringing in that energy and all about that, pump you up kind of business. But it has shifted a lot to whereas I think what audiences want most and what they feel most comfortable with, so ultimately have the best experience with is just authenticity.
Mm,
They want you to be authentic. They don't want it to be all braggadocious. They want there to be humility and vulnerability. And that's why we talk about storytelling,
hmm
because I think that authenticity is what's most important. So no, I mean, to be a public speaker, it is a skill. I mean, it is something you can practice because the practice is not in like just getting in front of the room. I mean, that's scary. And so getting as many times at bat at that is definitely good. But learning the material, like you're not going to get paid to read off a teleprompter. You are not there to just, put all of your text on PowerPoint slides and read them back to the audience. Like if you want to get to the level of keynote, quote unquote, speaker, you're going to have to do that, and really be able to command the stage for 30, 45 minutes. You don't need to do cartwheels and, fire up the crowd. You do it your way, but you need to be able to carry that time and whatever that looks like. And so, whether that's, we've talked about the structure of the presentation to some speakers are more interactive or get into the crowd. Some, they are more reserved, and there's no wrong answer necessarily. But I think, you got to also respond to the audience if they need some waking up or if they,
hmm
if you need to kind of, calibrate to where they're at necessarily. So, um, yeah, a lot of things to consider. And I think it like anything, yeah, you get better at it with practice.
hmm
So when you start out though, it's how you learn and you can still, get significant deals and get clients from small events, even
hmm
if it's just a lunch of 10 people. So that might be a huge deal, for your business. And you can just see how that can scale by getting in front of bigger and bigger audiences.
No, definitely. And I love the fact that you bring up the authenticity because in my limited experience, like I said, always successful getting a client. I think that it was the authenticity that actually helped out a lot and was the relatability to the audience who I was in front of that helped out a lot. And listen, if you're an introvert and that's your style, I'm glad that you're at least sharing with the audience that be yourself. You don't have to, and that'll loosen up some of the hesitation with jumping into public speaking. So I definitely appreciate that. I
Yeah.
guess, you just mentioned also starting up, right? Like what happens in this circumstance? Like what kind of resources do you have to get in front of people? Like, are there anything as far as, how do we get a speaking gig, period?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I always recommend people to start, with your network, with the people that know and love you, even do plenty of pro bono things like speak at your kid's school, speak at your school, speak at your church, speak at a community organization, speak at your friend's company, like anywhere that like maybe there's an opportunity for you to get some practice, get some video, and just get in front of an audience, I think is a great opportunity. But as that continues to grow and as you've kind of shaped like these are the topics, this is the ideal audience I want to reach, and so I'm going to start targeting events where I know that that audience is, and see what kind of speaking opportunities there are. So a lot of those conferences are online.
Hmm.
There's a lot of different events, and you would be reaching out to them. Some have applications for speakers, and some have just contact information. So it's definitely a hustle if it's something that you really want to do. But I think you can get super focused on those most meaningful events where your ideal clients are, and just really kind of focus on that. And the
Hmm.
advantage is most people are going in there and wanting to be paid as a speaker, or just trying to get picked as a speaker. If you approach them and say, I'm interested in understanding how you work with speakers and partners, as you're reaching out to them, then in their mind, they hear money signs. So
Hmm.
now it's like, oh, well, if he wants to partner or she wants to partner, then that might mean that they're going to spend some money. So let's talk to them. So then
Hmm.
you're just there, you're really just doing a fishing expedition to find out, like, well, how do you work with speakers? How do you choose your speakers? Or how do you, like what sort of opportunities do you have? And then if they really only do kind of speaking opportunities through sponsorships, or that is one of the main ways, then that is something that you can negotiate, and
Hmm.
depending on what the rate is for the sponsorship and what you're going to be able to offer, because you might in those situations be able to just offer your program, at the end of the talk, or the 3/4 length way still,
Hmm.
or just, move directly to selling people at this event typically. Um, it might be really worth it, because even if you convert a few, like it would, definitely pay for the sponsorship rate. And in this case, you're going to just want to consider a lot of things, but most of all is track record. Like I think we were talking about it earlier. Once you've done an event and can show that people showed up and like whatever, and the more you do it, the more credibility you have to get people to want to sponsor and put money into your event and be doing this. So thinking about that just as a speaker too. So those are just some ways to, pursue events, and to think not just about like how do I just get picked as a speaker. A lot of them do work more as businesses. These conferences, like they work off sponsorships.
Hmm.
And think about this, like some of them might not even offer speaking as part of their sponsorship, but try to negotiate for it, because what are they offering? You don't need your logo on a step and repeat or a lanyard. You might not need a lot of the stuff that they put in these packages, but if you can get all of the email addresses of the attendees, if you can get, things, if they will send a dedicated email on your behalf, if they will give you that stage time or whatever, these are the things you want to look for. It's just how can you get directly people into your funnel as quickly and efficiently as possible into and along that trust, like, whatever curve.
Oh no, I'm glad that you brought that up because not being in the space, I didn't even know those opportunities existed, right? So it's like it's really cool that you're sharing a little bit behind the scenes with that. And I know that we spoke off air too. Obviously, there's a couple of people out there who do public speaking full time, but you don't necessarily recommend that as a strategy for the everyday folk, right? It's more of a
Yeah.
supplemental way to kind of broaden your horizons as far as bringing in business.
Well, I think it's one way that you can start to take some, if you want to get out of like a 9 to 5 corporate life or whatever that looks like for you. it is something that can help you get out there and start building a business and start getting clients or start getting, some things to get you started. So I think there's just a lot of value that at any stage in your business or in your own, career that you can leverage to continue that growth, and it can be really strategic. I just don't think that, like, I think there's a lot of people who love speaking and they
Hmm.
get paid lots of money to do it. So why wouldn't you love it? Um, I think they like the travel and but most of them don't want to be on the road as much. Most of them wish that they could make as much money and not be on the road as much. And so there's only a couple ways to do that. You got to keep growing your demand and raising your rates and doing less and whatever and hoping that it balances out, et cetera. Or you got to figure out how else you're going to make money off of this. So I've
Hmm.
just seen so many speakers when I've been on the agency side where all we care about is getting our commission. I'm not there to try to get them to sell any products or services or any additional coaching. Like none of that. I'm not like, that's not our business. In fact, we don't want that. We want the bureaus don't want the speaker trying to, upsell anything, and they just want to keep it clean. And in a paid engagement, you do have to be a little bit more judicious in how you approach it and what you request or want to do. And there's a lot of strategies for that too. It doesn't mean it's off the table, but
Hmm.
it's not the same sort of opportunity. Whereas these events, where they're open to the public or they're open to specific groups or associations, et cetera, or specific industries, then that part of their business model is just bringing people to them that can support the event, and they're happy as long as it doesn't, as long as that aligns with what they're trying to do.
Hmm. No, it makes a lot of sense. Now, obviously, my envision of everything would be your, like you said, traveling, going on stages, etc. What's the market for yeah, virtual? Like, is it big? Do you get paid the same? Different parameters? Just go over a little bit
Yeah,
about that.
it's definitely not as big. I mean, it exploded during COVID and became such more of a viable option for people even now. There definitely are virtual things, but it's
Mm,
usually for smaller events or for a meeting where a company is not going to bring all of their people together to one place, and they're just going to all attend, remotely, or there's a lot of different reasons, but it's always less money. It's usually half the fee for paid engagements, virtual. But virtual events in general as an opportunity for you and as a health coach or business person are great. There's a lot of different platforms to leverage in that way to get your message out there, your information, to drive people to your webinars, to host your own workshops, because it's free. Like
mhm,
you don't need to like get booked at an event to have a stage. You can create that. You can invite people, even if a few people show up. Again, it's good practice. So
mhm,
virtual events should be virtual events, and just obviously all the virtual platforms, I think are a big part of the strategy.
mhm. Okay, good, good, good. That's good to know as well. So, can you talk about maybe a success story that you've had with one of your clients specifically that really you that's your model student, boost their bottom line, boost their brand? You have any testimonials to that effect, or the main testimonial that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, yeah, and a few, like, I've been on different sides of the business and worked with different speakers and helped grow their businesses in different ways. But
Hmm.
I think, obviously my proudest client that I worked with pretty intensely was Molly Bloom from Molly's Game when I was with Big Speak. And I saw the movie and reached out to the publishing house, which is where I first worked. So I still had some connections, and they got me in touch with the publicist. And, before you knew it, I had a meeting set up, and I was so amped for that meeting. I was so ready. Like, I read the book. I was just like really felt like connected to her. And then she decided to work with us, and I pretty much talked to her every single day and went on the road with her and went to her first, events, and went with her to Romania and Australia and,
Oh wow.
other crazy places. So I got to like continue to like coach and guide her through that first, year and a half at least of speaking. Well, yeah, at least like year and a half of speaking. That now it's pretty much her like solid career. It was her comeback story with the movie, and then this was going to, her hope was that she could translate it into something like this. So, and that's obviously a little bit more fantastic since not everyone gets a movie made about them. That is a pretty good
Hmm.
platform to get your story out there.
Hmm.
But even just in the speakers I've worked with in the last couple of years, like I've just seen their fees go up. I've seen how like better and better their materials and their assets are. And a lot of the people I coach, it's a limited time engagement, but I'm seeing all the stuff they're doing now. And I mean, like, damn, they really took it and ran and like, it's exciting.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I guess to wrap, because like you said, you definitely have started people out. You've seen how they've grown. Like, how would you approach helping the health coaches who are just starting out? Give us a little glimpse of what you would maybe talk about first couple steps that you would start them on that process of being a successful speaker.
Yeah. Well, I'll just describe to you the three pillars of my sustainable speaking strategy because I think you can apply it to your business, especially since you'll just put that, put your health coach services, et cetera, into pillar three. But starting with pillar one, it's your speaking asset. So figuring out your topics, figuring out your positioning, what are the things that you really want to speak about and in thinking about the audience, like don't think about everyone that knows all the health jargon and lingo and might be up on the latest trends or everything else. Think about your ideal client, someone that needs your support, someone that doesn't know anything about this. What
Hmm.
are the things, what are the like problems you're going to help them solve? What are their top of mind issues? Like all of those positioning questions that go into defining those topics and then putting some video on there. If to your point, get testimonials, have, the logos of places where you've spoken, like all of these is just building out a speaking page, a speaker profile, with some credibility building and then just showing what you've got. Again, if you don't have all that right away, that's okay. You can get it. You can gather it. You can, start with testimonials from friends and replace them as you go. Like, just
Hmm.
to have kind of the bare bones there. And the second then is what's your go-to-market strategy? So if you've defined now who your target client is and your target audience, it's what we were talking about just before going now after those events. Where do they gather? How do you get to speak at those events? Is it something that they do pay their speakers and so there's an added element there, et cetera, or going around and figuring out if you can partner with them in a different way? So that's the whole go-to-market strategy and just defining where to spend your time there. And the pillar three is products and services. And this is what most speakers don't have. And so as coaches now, you pretty much have this already, and you might want to grow that portfolio or whatever, but understanding like the products and services that you are going to offer through speaking or that are going to be part of your product pipeline, that you hope that speaking is kind of the top of the funnel for you and how
Hmm.
you're going to move customers through that. So those are kind of the three areas that I cover as like my three pillars of what I think makes for a sustainable speaking strategy as a business, but also just if you're using it as a business, this is how all the pieces should work together. It's informed ultimately by your ideal clients, your audience, your customers, and then all of the other things are engineered around that.
Okay, great point. Now, I thought that was going to be my last question, but I think I have one more follow up to that, and then we'll wrap.
Sure.
Um, where do you see public speaking going? Is there anything new on the horizon? Is it just going to be, it's that tried true steady method, like almost like authorships? Like, like, is there anything on the horizon that you may think is a surprise on the way, or it's just, public speaking is just what it is?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's always going to be this new technology. Like, we haven't really scratched the surface of the whole hologram thing.
Mm,
I'm sure there's going to be like different ways that we interact with VR and AR for meetings and stuff like that that speakers will have to adapt to. I'm like guarantee that that's going to be happening. So I'm always on the technology side. And then on the venue side, you know it's been around, like when I think about speaking, it's like it's been around since the Greeks are long, around forever. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
storytelling and being out there has been around for so long that like principally it doesn't change. It's just like the mediums, the methods of delivery, maybe even some of the business models. But I don't know. I think fundamentally the principles aren't really going to change all that much, and just the topics that people are thinking about, and like the industries that dominate kind of the interest in this kind of learning and experiences.
All right. No, cool. I didn't even think about that. That's awesome. So you've been great. I want to give you an opportunity to share how to get in touch with you, your social media handles, your
Yeah.
website, any way that we can just keep up with the great stuff you're doing. And if anybody absolutely wants to connect with you to get some assistance in this area, maybe jump on into your agency, all that good stuff, if you could share that with us right
Yeah, for sure. So Blair Bryant Nichols, and you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram as well as BBN Creative Management. So you can find both of us, both
now.
the company and me on those platforms, as well as bbncreativemanagement.com. And you can sign up for a free 30-minute call and be happy to chat about where you're at with speaking, or even if you're just thinking about getting started, and hopefully give you some good advice to what you should do next. So yeah, check me out there, and hopefully I'll see you on my calendar.
Awesome. Awesome. Appreciate you. Thanks for jumping on the show. Have a great rest of the day.
You too.
Hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. If you did, jump over to iTunes and leave a rating and or review. It goes a long way in helping get this message out to our fellow health coaches and people in our industry. Also, if you can, jump over to my website, omarcumberbatch.com, where I give out a lot of freebies, including my 5-day sugar challenge for people who are having issues with sugar. And also for health coaches, I have the book, Hidden. It's the 6 not so obvious ways to get your clients unstuck. Have a great day.